Hey everybody, welcome to the Curious is Better podcast. I'm Craig Lamb with Innovative, and I got a great one today because I'm joined by Greg Finnerty. And it's interesting, and I can't wait to get into this because Greg has spanned his career from lumber brokerage into like really leading edge technology stuff and tech transformation where you are now. I'll let you introduce yourself and shut up, Greg.
Yeah. Hey, Greg Finnerty. I'm Vice President of Concept Logistics. Yes, as you were saying, Craig, I did start in lumber brokerage, made my move into freight brokerage still at a very, very young age. I was in lumber brokerage for 3 years, and that led me up to my 20th birthday. And then I went into freight brokerage. So I guess it's in my blood at this point. But yeah,
Yeah, and before we get into the tech stuff too, Greg, like that's pretty unique, right? To traverse that,
yeah,
like, you know, what are there any lessons that you learned from witnessing of like it's still logistics, right? I
yeah.
think to a degree, but what how did it shape the way that you see things going from something like going from lumber brokerage into logistics at concepts?
Well, I think there, like you said, there is a piece of logistics in the lumber brokerage as well, right? You're getting something that someone needs from point A to point B, so it was there. But I think it was more of the self reliance or the hustle that the lumber brokerage kind of brought to me. No one was going to make the deal for me, type of a scenario where bringing that into logistics, especially at the turn of the century. I mean, year 2020 is when I started. Today is my 25th anniversary with the concept.
Congrats.
So, when I first started there, it was make it, you're on the phone. It's a boiler room mentality type of a thing where you were, you didn't have much to go on. You had the companies that you could find in the phone book. Dial a truck, or DAT at the time, was a very new concept because they were going into a load board as opposed to literally calling truck stops and talking to drivers to see where they wanted to go. So those types of things, I think, is where really it transferred over for me, where it was like, you got to hustle. It's got to be an urgency thing for the player in the game.
Yeah, it's because you and I talked before. You were saying too, is like it was a hustler, it was like boiler room type of a deal when you first got started, but it's vastly different now,
Yeah.
right? It's like what do you think were some of the pivotal changes like during that trajectory of advancing tech in logistics, like from the phone book to now? Like what
Yeah, I mean, I think once it's kind of a unique timeline because you went from that phone book and then you go into these load boards, right? And you're covering more loads. You're accessible to more carriers in your market, ones you didn't talk to, ones that are starting to come in. You're looking at more loads that are coming on the board. They're seeing the same thing on that side. You know, then it started to get a little bit more decisive. And what I mean by that is, like, you started to get into the fraud right away, right? So your compliance went from like getting faxed a bunch of sheets going, yeah, it looks good. Let's put them on the truck. And because you could trust, and that was the handshake and relationship deal you had, to these guys you've never heard of that all of a sudden are in your market. So each piece kind of went tit for tat in that you had to, if you're going to go into load boards, you had to get better at security. If you're going to get better at security, you got to have a better way to contact your carriers and your customers. If you're going to do that, then you've got to have something that you can bring it all into house together and really have somebody be able to read that and function within that little housing that you're creating.
Yeah. Well, you jumped on the fraud thing, and that's what we talked about before too, because they're using AI and stuff for fraud detection. But before we get into that, it's
Mhm.
like, so, you've been instrumental in it in introducing these types of tech. Like, was there like a cultural roadblock or anything like that as
For
you're
sure.
introducing these systems?
Yeah, I mean, I love tech. I always have. I just love the possibilities it can bring to anyone, right? Like, you can be a minimal understanding in any industry. And if you can evolve with tech, if you can get into the tech within that industry and what they use, you can progress yourself and the company you're working for. And who knows where that leads to, but you can bring progress to them very quickly. One of the challenges, I think, one is oh, you're getting away from the relationship. The freight brokerage industry is and forever, and I'll never veer from this, but is and forever will be built on relationship pieces. So it goes from those phone calls, those everyday contacts, those visits, to hey, what do you need conversations, and then you're automating, you're giving them what they need at a moment's notice without anybody ever asking, touching it, or anything. Now you're working with an API that's shooting it over to them, and they're saying, accept, deny, why, here, this, and you're adjusting those things. So I think a lot of the roadblocks that we faced in tech come from just that you're going to get some people that want to rely on the human aspect of it. And I am as big as I am on tech, it also has to come from need, right? So you have to find the need for tech to fit. Where if you're just going to look at the shiny new toy, it's just going to be that forever. And then you're going to get rid of the shiny new toy and replace it with another one, right? It's never going to ever make it in.
Yeah.
I think a big piece for us with when getting over that roadblock was how do we intertwine our relationships? How do we make our relationships stronger through the technology?
Yeah. Well, you and I spoke about this too. Is like, didn't you? And you have to remind me, but didn't you go through an implementation like during COVID?
Yeah, yeah. So we switched our TMS, which is for a freight broker. That's the bloodline, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're living in. That's what you're capturing in. And yeah, so we were coming out of a couple really strong years, 17, 18, 19, really good years for the company. We had a lot of we had just changed over ownership. The current owner, Brendan Daly, just taken over a couple years prior to that. We were feeling fresh, we were feeling good, we were young, we were ready to go, and I think what happened was we started getting some calls and asked for a different mode of transportation that we didn't ask for or we didn't handle at the time. But because of our relationships, right, they were like, "Hey, you've got to get into this, or we've got to go somewhere else." But we're giving you the chance to do it. So we did, and our current solution at the time did not have a viable option for us. So we did switch, and then
So you're motivated to do the
we
switch.
were motivated to do the switch again. Technology built out of need,
Yeah.
and then we go into it, and then like the day we signed and we're getting onboarded, I think it was St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
2020, where like the world
Sounds
shut
about
down
right.
like the next Monday. So I was, double-edged sword there. I wasn't feeling great this day after St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
and also I was switching TMS, and the world shut down. So I
Well,
guess
the reason
triple.
I bring it up though, Greg, is because like you had mentioned something before too, is like that in your industry, because we've seen it with our clients there in logistics too, is like there's two, it's seemingly two factions, the technology embracers and the technology resistors,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
But you bring to the table a concept that you're a technology embracer. So it probably doesn't seem as daunting for you because it's like, oh, it's another system and these are the value propositions. Automates this. We have APIs. I bet that when we were talking about that a few minutes ago, you spit out acronyms that there's some people that are in your industry go, what is he talking about?
Mhm.
Right. And like, I feel like maybe I'm off base, but I feel, listen, I've had some conversations with some logistics companies that are still like, I mean, Notepad. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I think and listen, there are successful ones doing that as well. So but I think we're entering a time in the world, right? But not just in freight brokerage, but in the world where AI is coming and it's here, really, not even coming. Like most of what we deal with on an everyday basis, from our phones to our emails to everything, has some element of it in it. So you're either going to be able to embrace it and maybe bring some of that of what it means and what it can do for you to bring to your company and help you guys not only survive but thrive. I mean, from phone call to APIs, we didn't do that because you had to. It was almost because you didn't do it because you wanted to, I should say.
right,
You did it
because
because you had to,
that's
right?
sure for scale,
Yeah, for
reach.
scale, for
Yeah.
quickness, for competition, like, as good as your relationships are, and I think every broker and probably every business can say this, as good as they are, there's always going to be somebody that comes in that's going to say, well, you know, but we've been with them a long time. They're probably not giving us the best pricing anymore.
Well, so I don't know what you want to get into, but you
Yeah.
touched on AI, and we've talked about pricing a few times. Are you using any tools to help out with that with pricing history
We
analysis
are,
and stuff
yeah.
like that?
Several and ourselves, right? So we're
Yeah.
also building it out internally, but externally we're using a thing, Triumph, to green screens, which is an AI It was machine learning, and I think they're adding in some AI elements beyond that. We're also using a company called Chain for tracking, and what they do is they're deploying agents. So we have, it's the less with more, more with less
Hmm.
type of mentality. So instead of me hiring 5 or 6 people who literally pick up the phone and see where a truck is and make sure they're on time, we're having agents reach out to them not only on the phone side, which I'm not a huge fan of yet, but we'll get there, I guess, and then on the emails and texts, and it brings it all into one house, right? So if one of my reps is saying, "Hey, I've got, I need you to check in at 11. I need to know where you are at 11 so I can give an update to my customer," and they type that into the chain. The chain UI is going to pick that up. And if we don't get there at 11 o'clock to remind them, it will go ahead and do it for us. Right. So
Yeah.
you're almost bringing in an assistant that's picking up what you're doing on a daily basis without you having to remind it and go back. And then you can come back and it's going to update your TMS. It's going to update your transportation management system. It's going to update that email chain, which is going to the driver and to the dispatcher now. So it's all housing it all in one place.
Yeah. And central to that is some telematics. And
Correct. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, and that's the, we used to call it the Amazon effect back in the day, because you can go on Amazon and order whatever you
your
want,
driver is 4 stops from your house, right?
and it's telling you exactly where it is, and you're putting $100,000, $200,000 worth of freight on a truck, and you can't tell your customer where it is. Like, that's not the world we live in anymore.
Yeah, that's not cool. So when we originally talked, I was kind of clearing you about some stuff too. Is like when we talked about innovation gaps, right? And the concept and in your history. So not to pigeonhole, I don't want to pigeonhole anything, but like when you do assessments from unless I got your words wrong, so you can correct me. But what I heard was like you'll do assessments of off the shelves first, right? And figure out what it can do and how much functionality covers what the requirements are of that organization.
Correct.
But and we also got because I'm baiting you because I want your opinion on this on the podcast too. Is like how do you identify your specific gaps, and then what do you do to fill those gaps with different um innovations, right? So like well, you go. You look like you
Yeah,
got
I think where we've taken it and where the kind of line we've drawn there is, at first it has to come in clarity with what your company goals are and what roles in your company fulfill those goals, right? So, okay, if we can take a look at a carrier rep, someone that would literally pick up the phone or make sure a carrier gets covered onto a load that a customer gives us, and that's their job. How many can they book by themselves, doing it the traditional way? Maybe some, um 10, 15, 20 a day. If you add in technology, it's almost like a 20 minimum, right? If you're able to source and do those things. So are we keeping our overhead a little bit lower, adding the technology into those things? But are you finding the gaps in the places where I can't call, back in the day, I guess let me rewind a second here, because I think it's important to note that when we started, you were the all in one. I talked to the customer, I talked to the carrier, I got all the paperwork, I talked to the driver, I made sure he was there. All that was going on. And if I was doing 20 loads a day, I'm making mistakes, period.
Yep.
Fully admitted, I'm making mistakes, right? So what we ended up doing was splitting the roles out into the three major, which is talking to the shipper, or your customer, talking to the carrier, and talking to the driver. Now, how many can you handle that you're now the master of one instead of the jack of all? And then where does technology give you your cape? Where does it give you your Superman powers? When do you become Josh Allen?
This you snuck it in there. Good for you.
Uh, but where do those come? And I think that's where the gaps get filled, because you might have someone that's really good at a carrier rep role or whatnot, but they're not seeking the coverage. They're really good with the relationship piece, and you need to be able to take their ability to form relationships and broaden it to the rest of the company or whatever. So now you're calling more carriers, you're reaching out more, and that person's got more exposure into the network. So again, you're you're bringing your company to a place I feel like that is poised for growth instead of saying, "Man, I wish everybody was a Craig."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're duplicating everybody in that sense.
Yeah. I agree. You know what? I think people would be interested, people in your industry, based on your experience and your anniversary, the 26th year, is that so that's cool. You identify technology gaps by doing some like assessments in like what is infringing on scale,
Yeah.
right? Where people can become the Josh Allens, right? But you have to pick partners in innovation. And
Yeah.
if you're not an engineer, how do you guys go about, and you specifically, how do you go in vetting who you partner with, and how do you know that their tool is robust and it's going to work with you? Or if you're working with a custom group, how do you assess that that custom group or even your internal guys are building something that is robust, scalable, repeatable, maintainable? How do you make those assessments?
I think you got to take a look at off the shelf stuff looks great and demos work because they are showing you the best of
Hmm.
what they're capable of. As silly as it sounds and as cliche as it sounds, it's built on their values and do they match mine? And are they willing to do things the right way to partner rather than just keep telling me they'll get better, they'll do this, they'll do this? Am I going to see that, feel that, and I'm going to be in the conversation? If I bring my concerns up, are we going to be in a conversation or is it going to be like, no, this is how we do it and here you are, right? And this is how you're supposed to use it. I think
Yeah.
what we've seen in the technology piece as of late is that their adaptability to each customer has been super important. I think if you go into a lot of the freight brokers and their partners right now, most of them, at least, I just was at a conference down at for our TMS in Austin, and 90% of those vendors down there were talking about workflows and your ability to create workflows within their right. So it's customizing it so it's not off the shelf for you. But again, I think it's for me, do I like you? Am I going to be able to,
Yeah.
can I rely? Are your values my values, or
Yeah.
are you growing to grow, or are you growing to grow right?
Yeah, we're on the same page. I always tell people, the people on my team, and then people I'm working with, if they're serving us, or if we're like, we use a lot of different toolkits and stuff when we have to talk with their engineers. And I would say everybody's got a trust path. They do. And if you're doing things the right way, accommodating someone's trust path should be frictionless. Doesn't matter what it is. It's like, well, I need this to feel comfortable. I need to see your repo. I need to see your documentation. Explain to me your process from this part to this part. And if you can't articulate it, well, then like either your process is not aligned with them and you guys should not be doing business together anyway, right? Because if there's a break in that process, but I feel like, everybody's got that trust path, and fulfilling that shouldn't be that difficult. It just, it comes up all the time, Greg. We talked about this briefly before, is that people get really intimidated where it's like, I am evaluating, you know, something that I don't do day to day. Like, how do I pick a great lawyer? How do I pick a great doctor? How do I
Right.
pick a great engineer? Because they're not within my discipline. But I think you framed it really well. It's like, are you aligned with my values and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, if we could start there, I think you're going to have a much better conversation than, you know, eh, does your partner make you feel like you're not the smartest person in the room? Then you're probably not with the right partner. Right. Like,
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Hey, what about looking ahead? Yeah, what if you're a crystal ball this whole thing in logistics? What do you think is going to be coming up, like in
I
the
think I
next
think I think
handful
you
of years?
gotta to me, I think you've got to adapt into AI. And I think you've got to adapt it into what you do as a company, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be people that can, and there is a cliche going on right now. AI won't replace you, but people who know how to use AI will. And
Yeah, I like that actually.
and there's a lot of truth to that. But I also think it's not even the people that know how to use it, it's the people that know how to develop it. Because I do feel like it's a learning technology. It's something that you can use to work through just about anything. You can rapidly work through ideas, but you have to know you're in charge of it. And I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
It's positioning yourself to have better relationships, because again, I'm going to die on this hill, but like, the freight brokerage world is about relationships. It's about carrier and customer relationships. It's about setting things up the right way. It's about sticking to your values and finding partners that are like that. And if you can do that and then leverage the technology coming down the road with that, you're going to be in a super position to just continue and grow at your company of where you want to be.
Well, you can focus on the nucleus of your industry, which is relationships.
Correct.
AI is not going to replace your relationship.
They can't.
Someone's not going to become friends with or trust
Right.
an AI bot. You know what I mean? But to your point, you mentioned earlier too, is like, man, AI automated workflows and stuff that we've been working on, and the stuff that you've been working on is like, it's it's not unimportant, but it's minutia that is repetitive that it screams automate me, right?
Yeah, I think, and I even saw, I think it's coming down because I think not too long ago I saw a publication where, we used to be like, million per head on revenue, right? Like that's a pretty safe bet of what you want revenue producing people to have is about a million. I think it's already gone up. I think you're going to see it be about a million point 0.25. I think before long it'll be 1.5 revenue you want on each person's head that they're bringing in. And I think the way to do that again is to embrace the technology coming down the road and let them put on a cape and show them how to put on a cape, right? You know, it's been an interesting ride to see how, like, okay, it's this grind, and I appreciate a grind because I think it's super important to develop character, right? Like it's
Mhm.
I mean, the army does it. Your sports team when you grew up does it, right? Like I remember trying out for my like sixth grade basketball team. I don't think we touched a ball for the first month. We just ran, what do they call them, lines or whatever, like
Yeah.
just up and down the court. We just ran, and it was like somebody took it out of the Herb Albert's book or whatever. But that was it, right? Like it's just that you got to establish that baseline where everybody's going to kind of be at and know that okay, you don't have to do the remedial tasks anymore, but you have to know how to program them, watch them, read them, and interact with them. So there's a different grind coming, I think, and it's making sure that your employees are set up for success in that.
I completely agree. Greg, I want to thank you for joining. I knew it was going to be interesting. It was, and it was fun.
No,
So
thank
I
you.
appreciate very much. Again, this is Greg Finnerty from Concept Logistics. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks a lot, Craig.